These Russian missile systems seem like a real horror to us in the first months of the war, as Ukraine had nothing to fight them with. They played the main role in the naval blockade of Ukraine, keeping the entire coastal area of the south of our country in fear, repeatedly destroying grain storage facilities and terrorizing innocent people.
An anti-ship complex with a launch range of up to 300 kilometers.
But as official Kiev acquired Western air defense systems, the effectiveness of the complex decreased and fell to such a level that today Russia does not use either the installation itself or the missiles created for it. We will tell you about this now, in the arsenal. Bastion is a coastal defense missile system jointly developed by Russia and Belarus. Russia also used it during the Russian intervention in Syria. The complex was created to target surface ships, convoys, and carrier strike groups. However, in the context of the Ukrainian war, it was used only against ground targets. Bastion, your puppet, has two mods: the mobile, Bastion P, and the stationary Bastion S, used in silo deployment. The complex can launch Onyx missiles as well as Zircon, which Russia has repeatedly demonstrated from the occupied peninsula.
Located in the territory of Crimea. Russia has deployed several divisions of this complex there. Bastion. It is an anti-ship complex with a launch range of up to 300 kilometers.
Overall, experts evaluate the Bastion positively. It is quite simple to use and reliable. It is an absolutely classic complex consisting of several launch control vehicles, support, and transport loading vehicles. However, it does not have its own target detection systems, unlike its Western counterparts. Therefore, it cannot be called advanced. The Bastion relies on information from other means, reconnaissance and monitoring, which must provide data on the type and coordinates of the target, which still creates some difficulties and delays during use. And now let's figure out exactly what that complex fires. The main missile developed for it is the highly advanced supersonic Onyx.
This missile has the capability to strike land targets. And it was precisely this P-800 Onyx missile that was used to shell Odessa, and then they shelled Nikolaev. But in truth lately, there hasn't been much heard about its use. Why? Because apparently very few of them were produced.
Like the vast majority of Russian counterparts, there is no weapon. The Onyx missile was developed during the USSR era. The development of this anti-ship missile with the P-800 index began in 1981. By 1987, the first test had already been conducted. But the collapse of the Union and the 1990s slowed down the project. It was ultimately only saved by the transaction of Onyx to India in 1998.
70s missile, the late 1970s. This is its deployment, and the Soviet Union produced it. It was likely produced in small numbers because there are also very few Bastion complexes. But its feature is that it is supersonic. It flies at Mach speed, which is the speed of sound, and its warhead can be up to 300 kilograms. 300 ki, TNT. You understand its destruction. We have seen in Odessa and Nikolaev destruction this missile can cause.
However, the rumors about the Russian Onyx turned out to be greatly exaggerated. After Ukraine recovered from the first months of the invasion and began improving its air defense, it turned out that the Onyx can be effectively shot down.
Due to its Mach speed, the Russians believed it would overcome the air or missile defense systems that we are trying to build based on the capabilities we have. But as it turned out, our guys are no slouches, and we have been shooting them down quite successfully. Shooting them down, including the Onyx missiles.
And they, along with the actual absence of our ships in the Black Sea waters, have rendered another of the Kremlin's victorious weapons simply meaningless.
They can only fire these missiles at border areas or those located on the coast, specifically if they are firing from ships, in particular from their vessels, and indeed in these scenarios, the missile flies, well, there are options that it flies up to 800 kilometers, but I think the main range of the missile is still 200, 300 kilometers. Therefore, naturally, they use them sparingly and only in areas where the missile could reach. It's not because they were saving them. Now, this missile is not within a small radius. Actions.
The second attempt to bring Bastions back to the battlefield was the development and use of the hypersonic missiles Zircon. This has no analogs, supposedly flying at a speed 9 times faster than the speed of sound. And it descends directly from the stratosphere onto its target. According to its creators, no missile defense system in the world is capable of handling it. With a year's delay, the missile was even put into service. However, whether it meets all the claimed specifications is unclear. To this day,
the same Zircon, which is also a big money eater without sufficient prospects, its real embodiment in solid form in the parameters that were previously announced.
At the same time, at least the fact that Zircon cannot be shot down Kyiv, tested 3 times already. In all 3 instances of use, the missiles never reached the target.
Each missile is developed for some specific technical assignments. Is it supposed to arrive quickly and hit something specific? The faster its speed during the approach to the target, the harder it is to intercept. If it is intercepted, knocked off course, and does not complete its combat mission, what can be said about this missile? Is it even a missile?
As for NATO, with which Putin is likely also planning to combat using this advanced weaponry, there are many more air defense and missile defense systems capable of destroying Russian Zircons.
It can be intercepted by Patriot systems, and we have already seen this. It can be intercepted by HATS-2 and HATS-3 systems of Israeli production. Moreover, now in Israel, they have developed anti-missiles for intercepting advanced hypersonic missiles. In addition, there are THAAD systems, such American missile defense systems. In addition, the SAM-PT complex and some types of missiles, in particular the Standard 3 and Standard 6, which are launched from American ships as declared as an anti-ship missile. And in the ammunition load, for example, of American Arleigh Burke class destroyers or Ticonderoga class cruisers, such missiles are included.
The paradox is that even those products that were managed to be assembled in single copies and even started to be mass-produced, there is no further possibility to produce. Firstly, they are gaining momentum every year. International sanctions. But the main surprise is that Ukraine, against which the Russian Federation has waged war, was the supplier of critically important equipment for missiles, especially anti-ship ones.
For the huge role in the loss of these capabilities by the Russian Federation in the maritime direction was due to the aggression of the Russian Federation against Ukraine since 2014, when cooperative ties were severed and the Russian Federation could no longer receive engine or installations of Ukrainian production.
As a result, for a significant period of time, for over 6 months, the Bastions, as well as Onyx and Zircon, have not been used in Ukraine. In the meantime, our military is waiting for the opportunity to eliminate these few complexes that are fully accessible in the region of Crimea for our means of destruction. Did you like this video? Then, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to our new Arsenal channel. The link is in the description below the video. Ukraine was able to eliminate one of the top employees of the Russian military-industrial complex. This person was one of the key engineers of Putin's missile program and was directly involved in the killings of peaceful Ukrainians and the destruction of our infrastructure.
He is a unique person, truly without exaggeration.
His developments helped Russian missiles fly further and more accurately. and they created new challenges for a number of Ukrainian cities.
Indeed, it reaches Odessa, it reaches Kharkiv, theoretically there's Dnipro, Kyiv.
What was the deputy general designer Mikhail Shatsky, who was eliminated in Moscow, working on? What successes did he manage to achieve? And how did Ukraine respond to his missile modernization? And most importantly, which of Putin's dreams will now remain unachievable for a long time? We will tell you about this right now, in the arsenal. His body was discovered at dawn on December 12, 2024. The corpse found in the Puzminsky Forest Park near Moscow was almost immediately identified. The person shot was the leading engineer, deputy general designer of the Mars Design Bureau, Mikhail Shatsky.
If the satellite indeed failed there and remained there, it is extremely critical now for this kind of communication.
The attacker fled the crime scene, and the press immediately speculated about the involvement of the Ukrainian main intelligence directorate in the elimination. And not without reason, because Shatsky was not just any engineer. His main work in recent years was the modernization of Russian X-59 missiles and X-69 missiles, as well as the development of new types of drones.
He is a unique person, truly, without exaggeration. He is not just a Buryat tank operator of whom you can recruit 100 to 500,000, and it doesn't matter how many died, you can recruit more. He is a person with a big mind, yes, with extensive knowledge, but he worked for the wrong side, and he was the instigator, the organizer of the process of developing the Russian missile industry, the modernization of missiles.
At the same time, his main achievement, as noted by Russians, was his extraordinary ability to organize the work process. He could gather the best engineers, secure funding, and implement numerous ideas that were dangerous for Ukraine.
Previously, for example, they made 2 units a month. He could organize the production of 4. If earlier they had a range of 700 kilometers, for example, he modified them to fly 1,000 kilometers. That's it, that at least for the short term, it was put to an end.
The last and perhaps the main creation of Mikhail Shatsky was the Russian cruise missile Kh-59. More precisely, its modernization to the level of Kh-69.
It is a subsonic cruise missile, meaning its speed is up to 1,000 km per hour. The flight range is up to 300 kilometers. There were projects which implied increasing the flight range.
And these projects were successful. Its range increased to at least 400 kilometers, and the maximum deviation from the target is now approximately about 5 meters.
What concerned the Russians was in fact the idea that it turns out you can actually create a long-range missile for tactical aviation, but of a type that they usually hang under a strategic bomber. They struggled and struggled, but indeed in 2015 they showed the first model of this Kh-69. And by the end or middle of approximately 2023, they reached serial production.
The very first use of such Kh-69s completely disabled the Trypilska TPP near Kyiv in April of this year. At the same time, for the launch of such a missile, the Russians were able to use tactical aviation for the first time instead of strategic aviation, which significantly increased the number of carriers and complicated the detection of the launch moment.
Currently, this Kh-69 was launched from tactical aviation aircraft, namely the Su-34 and Su-35. That is, simply the usual use of strategic aviation immediately triggers such markers when the Russians take to the air. The MiG-31, which carries the Kinjal or the Tu-22M3 or the Tu-95MS. And Russian tactical aviation is constantly in the air, and you can't detect on the radar what might be hanging there. Whether it's just a guided aerial bomb or a certain type of cruise missile.
This is one of the problems, as the detection time is reduced. The second issue is that it flies quite low to the ground. Its terrain scanning mode is well developed. And it seems that the guidance system is already well established. It's inertial. The satellite navigation system utilizes advanced electro-optical comparison with the actual terrain.
It is worth noting that the X-69 was an attempt to respond to the West. That was the task set. We need our own Storm Shadow. However, Russia has not yet reached the desired performance.
Russia wants to create a missile that would be launched from under the wing of tactical aircraft. That is, from aircraft like the 157th, 135th, 130th. And the range of this missile should be up to 1,000 kilometers. In principle, the whole world has such missiles. If we say the Shadow has a range of 560 kilometers, arguably it can operate at 980. The JASSM operating under the 16th wing at 980 kilometers. Russia hoped creating such a missile.
However, with the elimination of one of the leaders of this program, the seemingly approaching result once again falls into the category of dreams. Meanwhile, after missing the first attack of the X-69, on the Kyiv region, the air forces conducted serious work on their mistakes.
This is not the first Russian weapon model. Initially, there are some such applications under mysterious circumstances. No one knows how to deal with it. It manages to cause some very significant damage, and then they look for ways to deal with it. We've already been through this with the daggers, even with those with the Shahins.
Naturally, the solution found. We are not going to announce it. However, it can be noted that in subsequent missile attacks, the Kh-69 was repeatedly successfully shot down, along with other missiles launched by the occupiers.
These are all solvable tasks. We shot them down like all regular missiles. Let's talk about the Kh-101, Kh-555, like this 5500-55, about the main cruise missiles and calibers. The interception rate reached 85-87, even 90%. This is significantly higher than NATO standards.
At the same time, despite the serial production of Kh-69 missiles, the Russians have far fewer than they would like. It is precisely for this reason that work was organized to upgrade the old Kh-59 to their level. But it also entirely depends on imported components, which due to sanctions are becoming increasingly difficult to obtain.
The production of Kh-59 missiles is established. It completely and entirely depends on supplies through gray schemes. But overall, this production is stable. It is adapted to the conditions of sanctions, but it is insufficient because Russian aviation needs to launch dozens of missiles every day. They can only launch them at targets.
Did you like this video? Then don't forget to give it a like and be sure to subscribe to our new Arsenal channel. The link is in the description below the video.